Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Big Thinker universe. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about systems and processes. And more importantly, I'm going to talk about what has worked well for me and hopefully give you a shortcut. So, first things first, I meet a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners who resist processes. And I'm going to be honest, when I first read Traction by Gino Wickman, I was like, I love this book. That's a great idea for someone not me. And the reason was I saw processes as restricting me, and it felt a little too institutional for me. And I resisted and I resisted. And I'm going to be honest, I resisted to my own peril. What I realized recently, I learned that Gino Wickman is driven. Thank you, Dr. Doug Brackman. And Gino Wickman created Traction and Rocket Fuel and the entrepreneurial operating system to help entrepreneurs, not to restrict us. And once I realized that he is an entrepreneur and he did it to help himself, then I got on board. Now, for the record, I've always believed in systems and processes, but I always thought they were for someone else. What I realized is that good systems and processes help us scale. And I'll talk you through this because it was a big aha moment for me. And I'm actually going to let you in on a little secret that the reason I record my podcast is, number one, I want to help other people. But number two, I'm doing it to help my business. So I'm sharing things in my podcast that I do. I'm sharing things that I believe. And once the podcast episode is done and recorded, I transcribe it and I use the transcript to train my custom AI model so that it does things the way I think. So that's my little spoiler alert. If you are one of those people who say, oh, I don't have time for systems or processes, I guarantee everybody's got 15 minutes a day, and that's all I allow for this. 15 minutes every day, I'm recording one thing and solving one problem that helps me move my business forward. And this is from a book I read a long time ago, as I understand it. It's called The Slight Edge. It was written by Jeff Olson and I believe co-authored by John David Mann. Amazing parable, but the premise of The Slight Edge is if you're 1% better every day, over the course of a year, if you just add it up, you're 365% better. But the reality is you're actually better than better because it's not addition, it's exponential. So if you're 1% better today, you're 1% better tomorrow, you're actually 1% to the power of 2 better. So we don't get into math, but that's the aha moment was if I wait a year and try and get this done, it's a big project. But if I do 1% improvement a day, pick the thing that drives me nuts in my business or the thing that I struggle with or the thing that I want to solve, record a 15-minute video, work with AI to process it and improve it. All in, it takes me probably half an hour tops, and I have a process. So I'm going to explain that to you. In my world, I am a visionary. I love to exist up here at the 30,000 foot level. I'm not a big fan of the minutiae and the details. But what I've done is I've broken my world up into, there's the vision at 30,000 feet. There's my goals, which sort of represents the 20,000 foot or maybe 10,000 foot. They're a little more specific than the vision, but they're not tactical yet. So they're still strategic. And then once we've got the vision and the goals, then I have projects. I think Gino Wickman calls them his rocks. Basically, for me, projects are what am I going to accomplish in the next 90 days to achieve my goals? And then from the projects, I have daily actions I need to take to get to the finish line. And so what I realized was I love the vision. I love getting to the goals point. Me personally, I don't like to get into the projects or the actions. And if you can think about it for a minute, that is a real problem for business, because if you've got action without strategy, you're doomed to fail. If you've got strategy without action, it is the slowest path to success. And arguably, if there's no action, there's no path to success. You've just got a really good dream. So the difference between a vision and a dream and realizing it is the action. So what I use is I created a custom AI model. And what I'll do is I'll share my vision, I'll help set some goals, and then based on goals, I'll ask my AI model to break it down into projects, and from projects, break it down into actions. And for the neurodiverse entrepreneurs, this is a magical thing, because I'm really good at starting things. I could care less if I finish them. Literally, people don't understand this about me, but when I've finished whiteboarding something in my head, that's all I needed, I'm done. So what I do need, and this is where I love Gino Wickman's language, every visionary needs an integrator. And so what we want to do is have somebody around us that can take our ideas and run with them and finish them. Now, full disclosure, I am one of those people who drops more ideas by lunch than most people have in a lifetime. You, as the visionary entrepreneur, it's your job to say, here's our priorities. So I always have a North Star of here's what I'm hoping to accomplish. And based on those priorities, here's what I'd like you to work on. And then you got to zip it and let your integrator do their thing. And that's where AI can really help you, help your integrator. I use it as a translator app, so I can take it from the vision down to the project level. And then I say, okay, here, please take it down to the actions. You tell me what your actions are, tell me how you're going to track it, and then we can collaborate together. Now, from that perspective, I hear from a lot of integrators, the second in command, visionaries are annoying, we're difficult, we're challenging. Sorry, we have big ideas. If you put it in perspective, we're literally trying to change the world for the better. We've got a lot of ideas and we want to see them come out. Sometimes it's hard to figure out which ones are a priority or not. So for me personally, I also use AI as a parking lot. I'll put my ideas in and I'll say, okay, I'm going to revisit this every quarter. And maybe now is the time we add it to our project list. So that's one thing you can do as a visionary, help your team understand. Because one of the things I'm starting to learn is we don't mean to be, but we can be really cruel to our integrators because we keep moving the finish line. And it's not that we're not doing it intentionally. We're not saying, oh, I'm going to make their lives miserable today. We just wake up going, oh my God, and then we need to do this. The integrators here, we need to do this now. So again, a good planning process helps the relationship between the visionary and their team. I'm building a business, and my goal is the business itself will have a interim CEO, somebody who is not me. Their job is to manage the humans. My job is to sit in the dark with my whiteboard and brainstorm and come up with ideas. And once I've proven that they fit, then I'll hand it over to the team and say, here you go, team, please execute. So that's one of the aha moments for me, is that most people, myself included, we struggle with systems and processes. Now, here's the magic. If you're a visionary and, it is really literal to say, I am a Renaissance man. I know a lot about a lot of things. I don't know everything about anything, but I know a lot about a lot. You want to talk to me about publishing, writing, podcasting, networking. There's a few areas, artificial intelligence. I can talk about those things for hours. However, if I'm just talking about it, that's not a business model. And it takes me, if I created a product that involves all of those things, I'm the only one who can deliver it. So from a business point of view, I have a job. The job only gets done when Jeff's sitting at his desk working. So what I do with my AI models is I take the big picture, boil it down to the point that it can be outsourced to someone else. And that's where you start to build a scalable business. And for what it's worth, I grew up in the accounting industry. I was trained as an accountant, and I was very literal. In the accounting world, the more you know, the more you get paid, the more valuable you are. However, the more hours you work. Because if it took you 10 years to acquire knowledge, you can't just hand that off to somebody else and say, please do this for me. So what I now do as the expert in my favorite fields, I break it down and say, okay, what can only Jeff do within this task? And rarely is the only Jeff part more than about 5% of a task or a project. So I distill out what can only Jeff do. And then I break it down and say, okay, what could somebody with 5 years of experience in this particular unique field do? What could somebody brand new do? And then I create the processes. And the first time around, it usually takes a little bit of time. Maybe if I'm doing well, it takes me about an hour. But what I do is I sit down and I say, okay, if I do this once end to end, and then I do it again and I do it again, I have a job. But if I do it once end to end and I record it on, I just use Zoom or Google Meet. If you record it and then you transcribe it and you turn it into a process, then you can break it down and say, okay, this 5% is only Jeff. And if you don't believe me, think about dentists. When you go in, you see someone, a technician, who will check your teeth, do your x-rays, ask you questions. And then from there, you'll usually go see the hygienist and you get a cleaning. And then you meet the dentist, who will spend a few minutes looking in things over, and they do the procedures that only they can do. And if you study the business of dentistry, and by the way, this works in most medical practices, dentists will have multiple chairs, multiple patients, and they flip from operating room to operating room to do their work, while the team does the prep. So that's what we want to do, is figure out what is the unique piece that only you can do. And then we use AI to figure out what are the training and systems and processes that we need to give it to a team. And for me, that is a fundamental shift, because it went from, I will credit Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy in their book, Who Not How. I went, holy crap, I've spent my entire life learning how to do things. Which, by the way, in accounting, some of those things, to become a tax specialist can take 3 to 5 years just to become dangerous at it. It takes decades to become an expert at it. The how takes time. And when you look for the who, and this is something I've been building out, is my model for finding the right person. If you find the who, you don't have to learn the how, and you just say, okay, expert, please do this thing. So what I've done is I'm trying and I'm working to become an expert at breaking things down into pieces so that I can find the right who for each piece. And really, truly high level, I've figured out that there's always a top level vision. We need to figure out, what does success look like? And then once we have the vision, then we start to look at what are the individual strategies that work, so that we can create our goals. And then we get to the projects and the action items. And just to put it in terms of perspective, our action items are our daily things. Our projects are the 90-day milestones. Our goals are usually 1 year at a time, and our vision is 3 to 5 years out. So we're always looking to the horizon saying, here's what we want to accomplish, but here are the steps to get there. And the old saying, journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. That's what we want to do. I hope that was useful. Thank you.